She's a biologist on the South Shore. She's going to come. She's got a really good eye for finding fun things. Hopefully the weather holds up. We'll have something good. On November 2nd, the Orleans Audubon Society is doing a bird walk at Jean Lafitte, which is kind of a hike from here, but you know, that's I don't know if John Nelson, I don't know who's leading it, but that's always a good trip. And then on the 3rd, on November 3rd, we're going to do a work day at North Lake Nature Center. If anybody wants to come, lop branches, weed whack, work with general trail maintenance, you know. And then the next meeting is going to be on November 12th, which is a Tuesday, I think. Yeah, okay, and that's going to be, the title of it is Native Plant Rescue with Patricia Ziebrick, who is in the back. She's the president of the Wild Ones Pontchartrain Basin chapter, and she is starting a program to go rescue plants on land that is about to be developed. So instead of it all just getting cleared, we go rescue the native plants, we go plant it somewhere else. She needs a lot of help with that. And then on November 16th, the title of this event is called Eat the Planet in all caps, which is very dramatic. But it's a guy named John Nettles who is, he's pretty well known for his foraging ability specifically. So it's at the Abita Trailhead. Tickets are required, and you get them on Eventbrite. They're only, I think, $10. And then on the 26th of November, we're going to have a Northshore Nature Club mixer. So instead of having like a meeting, we're just going to go to McLean's Pizza, 7 p.m., pizza, beer, you know, just hang out.
To the 26th.
Yeah, the 26th. Yeah, and again, all these dates will be, I'll put it out. And then on the 15th of December, I have confirmed with, sorry Matt, but the backpacker, we're going to have a gear resale / garage sale / like holiday market. So the backpacker on the North Shore, they own the whole parking lot, so they can shut it down. We can set up tents. I'm going to get a food truck. See if we can get a brewery or something out there to bring some beer. Cherry Bomb coffee. They don't know it, but they're going to be there. And that was confirmed yesterday, so I don't have any more details about that right now. But that's a Sunday, December 15th. And before I forget, I'm going to pass around my notebook. So if you're not on the email list yet, if you've already given me your email, you don't have to give it to me again. You can if you want, but you get the same amount. Right, and it tucked behind the page is a QR code for my Venmo. Just covers some nominal costs if you want. Don't feel at all obliged. Money just kind of covers the snacks. Maybe throw Amanda some gas money if if we get enough. So, and this is Amanda, and I'm going to let her have the floor.
Hello. Hi. Nice to meet all of you. So my name is Amanda Pennington, and I am here today to teach you some bug basics. So I have been following Alex for a while on social media. Do you care if I share how this kind of came to fruition? Okay. So I am a nature lover. I'm a former entomologist. I'll get into that in a minute. But this kind of came to fruition because Alex misidentified a butterfly. And it just, I was losing sleep over it, y'all. I was like, I couldn't sleep at night. I was tossing. I was like, I got to tell this guy. And I was like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that nerdy science person who's like, hey, actually, that's not what you said it is. But it was driving me bananas. And so I did. I was like, hey, actually, that's not a monarch butterfly. This is a viceroy, which is a mimic of a monarch. So you're close. But, he was like, how do you know about bugs? We kind of talked, and then this kind of happened. So I'm excited to be here talking about bugs because it's been a minute since I've talked about them, but I dug down in my brain for my knowledge. So I'm going to get into that, though, in a minute, like I said before. So this is just an overview of what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to do an introduction and background of myself, just my education, my experience, kind of how I ended up working with bugs, those kind of things. Then we're going to talk about what is a bug, right? That's the whole point of why we're here today. Like, what in the heck even is a bug? What classifies it as a bug? We're going to talk about that classification, and I'm going to give you some examples. And the examples that I included in here are all things that you can find here in Southeast Louisiana. So anything that if you go on a nature walk, or if you even just go on a walk around your neighborhood, or you're walking around in your backyard, you might come across some of these critters. And then I've got just a few bug fun facts, just some little tidbits of information that I picked up as my experience as an entomologist that I just think makes bugs wonderful and kind of helps people fall in love with them a little bit. And then of course I'll have some time at the end for any questions that you might have for me. So let's get into who in the world am I and why am I talking to you about bugs? So I've loved animals ever since I was a little kid. I spent a lot of time outdoors with my dad. He was an avid fisherman and sportsman in Louisiana. And so I spent a lot of time on the water, looking at critters with him. He kind of instilled that love in me. And so I knew I wanted to do something in science. And so I went to Southeastern for my undergrad. I have a bachelor's of science in biology from Southeastern. While I was there, I actually did an internship at the Audubon Butterfly Garden and Insectarium. I did not ever think about working with bugs, but when I got there, I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it. I was like, these creatures are so cool. I want to do this like forever. So I decided that I wanted to try to get a job there after I graduated. Unfortunately, they didn't have any positions open. So I took a job at the zoo, which was still cool, but it wasn't bugs. It was big, stinky mammals. So, so I took a job at the zoo. Eventually, a position did open up, a full-time entomology position, and I switched back over to the insectarium. I worked there full-time as an entomologist for a few years before I had my daughter, and then I decided I needed a job closer to home. So I did a career shift, and now I actually work in forensics. So that's what I meant when I said I haven't talked about bugs for a while, but I did it for several years, all day, every day. So I think it's just ingrained in me now. Yeah, so I actually work in forensics now. I'm a forensic DNA analyst. I work for the NOPD crime laboratory now as a supervisor there. But I previously did work here in St. Tammany at the coroner's office, so I do forensic DNA analysis. So I do it all in the lab, write the reports, testify in court, you name it, all that stuff. So keeping the bad guys, away from people that they might hurt. So like I said, did a career shift, but I love bugs, right? Because they're just great and they're cute and they're important and they're great guys. And I think they're just misunderstood, And that's really the biggest thing. They're just misunderstood. People are like, oh, I'm so scared. I'm like, just get to know him, Just get to know him. Give him a chance. And I still dabble in a lot of bug hobbies. I observe, I love to go for a walk and point things out. I think my friends and my husband get a little tired of it, but I'll be like, hey, look at that, whatever, So I do that. I like to pin bugs still. So yes, I have like dead bugs in my freezer that I pick up off the sidewalk. Then I'm like, I'm going to pin this later. I still raise caterpillars every year with my children. We raise monarch caterpillars. So we plant milkweed, and then we bring the caterpillars inside, raise them. Once they emerge as butterflies, we let them outside. We release them. And then I also did a little bit of beekeeping for a while. But then I learned that my husband is deathly allergic to honeybees, so I decided to keep my husband and get rid of the bees. So I no longer do that. But it was really fun while it lasted. So those are some of my bug hobbies that I still do. And like I said, I'm still always fascinated by bugs. I actually just went to a conference for forensic DNA analysis. It's the International Symposium on Human Identification. And someone did a poster presentation on developing a DNA profile from maggots. And I was like, this is my jam. Like, this is it. Like, all my worlds colliding. I was so excited. So still love bugs. Still got some of that knowledge in my brain. So let's go. Let's talk about what bugs are. Well, I'm going to stop you right there, okay? We need to stop saying bugs, really. Guys, we got to say arthropods. They're more accurately known as arthropods, which means joint-legged. So that is the group that encompasses all bugs. Arthropods have 3 or more pairs of jointed legs, segmented body parts, typically bilaterally, and an exoskeleton, which is made of chitin, which is kind of similar to keratin, which makes your hair, but it's like a little bit stronger. So more like bones and teeth. And their exoskeleton, so their skeleton's on the outside of their body. That's why they're hard like that. So instead of having their skeleton on the inside like us, their skeleton's on the outside. So arthropods, bugs are another group of arthropods. Bugs, true bugs, are a type of insect. They typically have a rostrum. It's like a straw-like mouth. So all bugs are arthropods, but all arthropods are not bugs. So for the rest of this class, or this talk, whatever you want to call this, we're going to say Arthropod 101. So we're going to change the name of it. We're calling them arthropods. We're scientists here. We're nature peeps. Let's get it right. So there's like a lot of arthropods. I don't know if you're aware of this, like millions. So unfortunately, I can't talk about all of them today. We would be here till like next year if we tried to do that. So I'm going to go over some of these groups with you. This is kind of how you start with classifying animals, with classifying organisms. So this is known as, naming of organisms is known as taxonomy. You might have seen this before, way back when in a science class, long ago. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. The further you go down the line, the more specific you're getting, all the way down to that species. That means that species, all those animals are exactly alike. As you go up, they might have some similarities, but they also might have some differences. And so then that's how they get classified into different groups. So the phylum is arthropods or arthropoda. We're going to talk about these 4 subphylums because it's the kind of the 4 big groups that arthropods are classified into. You have myriapods, which are millipedes and centipedes, hexapods, which are insects, chelicerata, which is arachnids, crustacea, crustaceans, right? The most delicious of all the bugs, all the arthropods. So we're going to start with millipedes and centipedes, and I'm going to start with millipedes first because centipedes I just don't do. Every entomologist you meet has a bug that they just don't do. I guarantee it. Don't you ever let an entomologist tell you, I love all bugs. Nope, there's one that for me it's centipedes. They never gave me the warm and fuzzies. Look, they're mean suckers. They got them eyes and them fangs. Look, we'll get into it. So myriapods consist of several classes. Like I said, we're going to be focusing on millipedes and centipedes. Myriapod translates to 10,000 feet, which is funny because none of these critters have 10,000 feet. But when you look at them, they look like they got a lot of feet, right? So somebody down the line said, I think that thing's got 10,000 feet. So that's what they called it. So millipedes, oh, wonderful, sweet millipedes, unlike centipedes. So they're in the class Diplopoda, which means double-legged. Why double-legged? Well, that's because each body segment of a millipede has 2 pairs of legs. So if you look at a body segment, one of those little bands on a millipede, you're going to see 4 legs. So they do generally have more legs than a centipede, but still not 10,000. Depending on the species, depending on how large it is, depending on the biogeography of where it lives, and the evolution of that animal, that's going to determine how many legs it has. But typically, you're looking at a range of maybe like 100 to 200, not 10,000. Their habitat, they like to live under rocks. They like to live in rotten logs. They tend to eat stuff that's a decaying plant matter. So that's where they can find that stuff, right? So they like to dwell in those places so they can eat all that decaying plant matter. And there's over 13,000 species worldwide. I will say this, all of these slides that I have this number of species, there's always the caveat that there's suspected to be a lot more. They just haven't been discovered or they haven't been classified yet. So this is our friend, Narcissus americanus. This is a North American millipede. Isn't he cute? So they're about the size of like a cigarette, is generally about how big they get. They go from eastern all the way to central North America. You can definitely find them here in Louisiana. If you have like rotten logs in your yard, or if you go on a nature walk, you might see them kind of digging in the soil. They're great to have in your garden because they are nitrogen fixers. So they eat that dead and decaying stuff, right? If you have a plant in your garden, leaves fall off, they'll eat those old yucky leaves, and then they'll poop out nitrogen-rich poop and stuff. It'll go down in your soil and it'll help new plants grow. So they're really important for growth of new plants. They're really great guys to have in your garden. So if you see these in your garden, don't squish them, don't get rid of them. They're not going to hurt anything. They're not going to eat your live plants like caterpillars may. They're going to eat just the dead decaying stuff. They don't really have much of a defense mechanism. They can secrete a little stinky, sticky kind of substance. But I mean, we're much larger than them. So if we get it on us, it's really not going to do a whole lot. We're also not going to try to eat them, I don't think. So we're not going to put it in our mouth and spit it out. Now a predator though, if they did that, they might spit it out, leave it alone. That might get them, you know, a little bit longer life. But if you see one of these guys in the garden, you get that sticky, stinky kind of yellowy stuff on you, just wash your hands. You should be fine. Centipedes, class Chilopoda, name 100-leggers, which is ironic because millipedes are probably more likely to have 100 legs. Chilopoda actually only have one set of legs per segment. So like I said, millipedes or diplopods have 2 sets of legs per segment. Chilopods only have 1 set. So you're looking at maybe like 40-ish legs for a centipede. Their habitat, they live in deserts, under bark, and in rotten logs as well. They are typically insectivores, so they typically eat smaller arthropods. There have been accounts of some of the larger desert centipedes, eating things like small frogs, small lizards, things like that. And there's about, or a little over 8,000 species worldwide. This terrifying creature is the bark centipede, this guy can be found from Virginia to Florida, west to Oklahoma and Texas, and yes, we have these in Louisiana, unfortunately. This animal does have a venom. They are insectivores, like I said. They eat other bugs, they eat other animals. So they have to use that venom, they inject it into their prey, and then it will paralyze their prey and they're able to eat it like that. If they bite you or I, it's not medically significant to us. What that means is we're just far too large for their venom to take any kind of effect on our bodies. It will still hurt. You will have a little bobo, but you will be just fine. They also, interestingly, are great at maternal care. I've always thought that was very interesting about them. They will lay their eggs and they'll coil around them and kind of protect them from predators and things like that. It's very interesting for a critter that's so terrifying. So now we're going to move on to insects. That's the one we probably all know, right? Remember those? What do you know about insects? Does anybody remember anything about what makes an insect an insect? 6 legs. They have an exoskeleton. That's all arthropods. But typically they have 2 sets of wings. Sometimes they can have 1, but it's typically, antenna. Yep. 3 body parts, yep. Those are all correct. So they consist of insects and actually 3 smaller groups of wingless arthropods. We're not going to get into those today. And hexapod translates to 6 feet/legs. So I think y'all hit all these. So 3 pairs of legs, 3 body parts. Those 3 body parts are the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. They have 2 pairs of wings typically. Sometimes they have 1 or none, but for the most part, it's 2 pair. And 1 pair of antennae. This is the monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly is probably one of the most recognizable insects in all of the United States. We've probably seen this at some point in our lives in nature, on a picture. We probably learned about it in school. A lot of time it's the very first biological concept you learn in an educational classroom, and that's complete metamorphosis. Butterflies go through complete metamorphosis. It has 4 distinct stages. They have an egg. That egg hatches. They have a larva, which is a caterpillar or a baby butterfly. That larva pupates and turns into maybe like half their life as an egg and a larva and a pupa, and about the other half as a butterfly. But that's the thing with a lot of bugs. Many of them don't live very long, but you have to understand their basic skill is survival. You know, of all the animals in the animal kingdom, we're probably the least equipped for survival. But everything else that is out there, especially with arthropods, is extremely, extremely specialized. It has a specific purpose. It's going to do that thing. It's going to get it done, and then that next generation is going to take over. This one's probably pretty recognizable too, right? Honeybee. This is actually our state insect. Did y'all know that? This is Louisiana's state insect, is the honeybee. They have a widespread range and can be found all over the place. Honeybees are great. They give us honey, which is delicious. They also help pollinate plants, which is wonderful. The females can sting. They do have a stinger. Males cannot. So if you keep bees, you'll have these little worker bees that can sting you, but the drones, the males, cannot sting you. And then you'll have your queen in there, and they all work together to make that honeycomb and make that honey, which it's pretty awesome to watch them do. Once again, that's their job. That is what they're doing. They're going out, they're getting that pollen, they're coming back, they're building that hive. So very specialized animals, very particular in what they're trying to accomplish. Just be careful if you find out you're allergic, like my husband did, unfortunately.
Can you tell the male and female apart by looking at them?
So you can tell like the workers and the drones apart. I'll have to show you a picture of a drone. The drones have like these big, big eyes. And obviously like the queen, she's like far larger than all the rest of them. And she doesn't fly. She just stays in the hive. But the workers look like that. And then the drones have these big old eyes. With a lot of like bees and wasps, it's typically the females that sting. Because the females have an ovipositor, which is what they use to lay their eggs. And that also doubles as a stinger. Males don't have that. So a lot of times though, not with honeybees, but with some other species of bees and wasps and ants, the males will have wings and they can fly and they can't sting. The females will not have wings. And so that's a lot of time, that's sexual dimorphism. That's a lot of time, that's how you can tell the difference between. Say that again?
Velvet ants.
Yes, that's a great, I was about to say that. That's a great example, velvet ants, or cow killers, whatever you want to call them. They're those big red ants. The ones without the wings are the females, and they can sting, and apparently it hurts like the dickens. The males, though, have wings, and they can't sting. You can pick them right up and hold them in your hand.
And they're actually bees and not ants.
Yes, or wasps. They're wasps. Yeah, so.
Does the male look just like the female with wings?
He's like a little thinner. That tends to be the case with a lot of insects too, or a lot of arthropods. The female is typically larger. She's got to have babies. So she's got to have a little bit more girth to her to lay eggs, or like mantids. Typically the females, their abdomen's a lot bigger than the males because they lay an ootheca. They lay a big egg case. So that, you know, they have to have that body mass to be able to carry those eggs, produce those eggs, and then lay them. So a lot of arthropods exhibit sexual dimorphism like that, and the female's typically bigger. So this is a Carolina mantis. I included this one just because I like it. Mantids for me are personally special. It's probably one of the first arthropods that I ever really fell in love with. I have vivid memories of like my dad catching them and bringing them home. He would go fishing, like I said, and he would see them and he'd bring them home. Why? Because he'd put them in his garden. They're great for pest control. They eat other bugs. So they eat things like your aphids or other things that might chew on your plants. And so he would put them in his tomato plants and on his bell peppers and things like that, trying to use them as like natural biological pest control. I actually just had one of these on my porch the other day and spent some time outside with it. They're really fun to observe. They have like quirky little personalities. they're very alert, very keen to things. They'll look right at you. They know that you're there. So they're just fun guys. I love mantids. But fun fact, it's one of my favorite bugs, but actually the only bug that ever bit me when I worked at the Insectarium was a Carolina mantis. It was my fault. I spooked her, but I reached in to grab her and she didn't see me coming. So, but yeah, she was just doing her thing, protecting herself. But yeah, I just included this one because I like these guys, but you could definitely come across these here in Southeast Louisiana. And this is the patent leather beetle. This is another one that's just really interesting to me. They are a little beetle that they like to live in rotting and decaying logs. They actually make a little sound, which is interesting for a beetle. They make kind of like a little squeaking sound, and they can kind of communicate with each other. They also live in like big groups, like they live in communities, which is also very interesting because other than like ants, you don't really hear of a lot of arthropods doing that. It's not typical. Most of them kind of, bees do it too, but most of them kind of, go about their day, do their thing kind of on their own. So it's very interesting that these beetles, kind of live together, take care of their babies together, kind of have this little communal aspect to them. So I've always found them kind of interesting. So if you've ever seen one on like a log or on a path or something, pick it up and put it by your ear, and you might hear it do its little squeak. You got to put it right by your ear though, because obviously it's very quiet. All right, now we're going to get to Chelicerata or arachnids, which is my favorite. So arachnids, simply put, are spiders and scorpions. We're not going to get into scorpions because, we're not going to find them really running around on the North Shore. They are really cool though. If you have some time, you can take some time to observe some, or even go see them at the Insectarium, or just read some literature on them. Scorpions are really, really awesome. One of the coolest thing about them is that they can glow in the dark. So if you shine a little UV light at them, a little black light, they'll actually glow. They'll light up. So that's a really cool little party trick that they have. But yeah, we're going to talk about some spiders here in a minute. So arachnids have one or two body parts. So before we said insects have a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. Spiders have what's known as a cephalothorax. So it's kind of like their head and their thorax is almost like fused together. And then they have an abdomen. Some of them, for example, what we know as a daddy long legs has just one body part. Everything's kind of fused together. But for the most part, most of the ones that you're going to run into are going to have that cephalothorax and an abdomen. They're going to have 4 pairs of legs, so 8 legs. They don't have any antenna, and there's about 75,500 species worldwide. Once again, thought to be more, but this is the number we're going with right now. This is the first one I included. What do you call this? Don't look at the name at the top. What do you call this?
Banana spider.
A banana spider. That's the funny thing about common names though, right? Because this is the banana spider, and then there's also a banana spider that lives like in Brazil and like crawls on the ground. And then there's like a banana spider in like Southeast Asia. So that's the funny thing about common names, right? They can cross. So that's why we have scientific names. It's why we use that taxonomy system, that whole phylum, class, or all that stuff, all the way down to genus and species. But a better common name for this guy is golden silk orb weaver. So let's call it that from now on, not banana spider. Why? Because it's an orb weaver. It's in the orb weaver group. What is an orb weaver? Well, orb weavers make very beautiful, intricate webs. If you've ever seen one of these on a web, you've probably seen how massive and how beautiful that those webs are. Think of them kind of like the spider from Charlotte's Web. That can make these beautiful designs in there, make letters in there. There are several species of orb weavers that will put a letter. There's one that does like an I. There's one that does like a Z. They don't do it knowingly. Spiders can't read, right? But they put it on their web. Great spiders to keep around. If you see one of these in your yard, don't knock that web down. Do everything you can to avoid it because they're going to catch things like mosquitoes, flies, maybe little like mealy moths, things that are pests that can get into your house and aggravate you. So these are great guys to keep around. A big spider, right? If you've ever seen one in real life, big, nice and hefty. This is a female. But once again, with that venom, not medically significant. If it bites you, you'll get a little bobo, but you're going to be just fine. But the chances of this spider biting you are very slim. She's not going to come off that web. She's got work to do. She's going to stay up there and catch her little critters, wrap them up and save them and eat them later, maybe lay some eggs. She's really not interested in coming hang out with you and bite you. Just let her be and let her do her thing, and she'll help keep those critters away from your house. These can be found in the southeastern United States, along the Gulf states, north to Virginia, south to Central and South America. So we're going to call these guys golden silk orb weavers from now on, right? Nice. Now we got to get to the fun stuff, because I know somebody's going to ask me, can't you die from a spider bite? The last known that I could find from my very reliable website, last known recorded death from a black widow spider bite was in 1959. So you're probably going to be okay. So this is the southern black widow. She's got a trademark red hourglass on her abdomen. That means, hey, leave me alone. Bugs that are typically red or orange or yellow, either they taste bad, they're stinky, or they're going to bite you and it's going to hurt. Like our friend the monarch we saw earlier, orange, because they taste bad. It's a warning to birds and things that might eat them. Like, hey, don't waste your time. I'm not going to taste good. What color are their caterpillars? Yellow. Same reason. So that birds and things won't eat them. Why? Because they eat that milkweed. That milkweed, it's you are what you eat when you're a bug. They're going to taste like milkweed. But the southern black widow, like I said, she's got that trademark hourglass. Most of the time when you find her, she's going to be upside down like that. She wants to warn you, like, hey, get away from me. I can hurt you. So when you see her, she'll be upside down like that if you ever see one out in nature. This widow lives here in Southeast Louisiana. We also have brown widows here, very similar, actually an invasive species, which kind of stinks because they've driven out the population of black widows a lot. But these guys, they do have a neurotoxic venom. So if you do get bit by them, like I said, you probably will be okay, but you're gonna go through some things. You're gonna have a day. It's gonna affect your nervous system. You're gonna feel achy, probably kind of like similar to you have the flu. You're gonna have a lot of pain, maybe some burning sensation in your joints. You can also become nauseous and vomit. You might have some sweating spells, and you should probably seek medical attention. If you see this animal bite you, the best thing to do is to try to capture it and bring it with you to the doctor so that you can say, hey, this bit me. Take care of me. When you go to the doctor, and this is just knowledge I've gained just from talking to people at the Insectarium who actually got bit by these critters, they're going to basically just put you on bed rest for like 48 hours. They're going to pump you with fluids and make sure you don't have any kind of crazy adverse reactions. Because if you are immunocompromised or if you have a heart issue, obviously a neurotoxin is not really what you want going into your body. So they're going to make sure that you're going to be just fine. Normal, regular, healthy adults, probably, like I said, you'll be okay. You'll go to the hospital, you get some fluids, you'll come back home. If you're an infant or very elderly or immunocompromised, let's say somebody who may be going through chemotherapy, you're going to have a lot less luck with this guy. But the chances of any of those types of people being in the place where a black widow is probably very slim. So I think it's safe to say that we're all probably going to be okay around this beautiful lady right here. So they're very fast. We handled them at the Insectarium and never had any issues. We actually had ours, they got so fat that they had stretch marks on their abdomen. We had to put them on a diet. They were the fattest black widows you'd ever seen. Yeah, so when you get fed every day, you know.
Where are they?
Where do they live?
So usually in the woods, like in logs, anywhere where it's this. That's the thing with these guys. These venomous spiders, like I said, they don't want to hang out with you. They want to be where it's dark and cool and quiet. So you might an old shed up in the corner, you know, that nobody ever goes in, a log that's emptied out, a tree that's hollowed out. Those kind of, you know, in the woods, those kind of places where it's dark and it's cool and it's quiet. That's where they want to be. I've seen people say that you know, they'll have them on like a chair that's in their garden, that's been in their garden for years, that nobody's touched, and they'll find a spot there. So typically like underneath things, in the corner of things, that kind of stuff is where you'll find them. Brown recluse is very similar, right? Like its name suggests, it like doesn't want to be your friend. It's reclusive. So these guys like the same thing. They like where it's quiet. You might find these in your attic. It's a good idea if you're going to go up in your attic to maybe wear some gloves, because a brown recluse might be down in the corner of a box or something that you have up there, because it's quiet up there. It's dark. There's not a lot going on. So they like to tend to go kind of under logs, under rocks, things like that, kind of somewhere where they can kind of hide a little bit. They don't have red on them, so, you know, there's not really a warning sign. But if you want to identify one, they have this little fiddle or violin shape on their cephalothorax. Do you see that? It kind of looks like a little violin up there on the front of its head. Kind of like right here, as you'll see where it's like darker brown. So that's kind of that trademark. And they're very leggy, because a lot of people see other spiders and they think they're brown recluse. Everything's a brown recluse. Every brown spider is a brown recluse. No, it's this one. Very leggy, that violin or fiddle trademark. Their toxin is different. They don't have a neurotoxin. Their toxin's going to affect your skin. It's going to make it kind of necrotic. So it's going to be similar to like having a staph infection. They'll bite, and then you might get a little blister, and then that blister eventually will turn into kind of like some dead skin. And once again, you would seek medical attention, and they would give you some antibiotics, and you should be just fine. They'll probably actually treat it exactly like they would treat a staph infection. But still, maybe go seek some medical attention. The thing is, with these guys, unfortunately, a black widow, you're probably going to know it bit you because it's going to hurt real bad. These guys, you might not know until a couple days later that they bit you. They're just so tiny. Their fangs are so tiny. And like I said, it's not that neurotoxin. You're not going to feel it in your whole body. It's going to be localized to right where they bit you. But once again, you should be okay. Not deadly if you don't have any adverse reaction, things like that. Their range is the Southeast United States, so they are here with us. I came across one after Ida. I was cleaning out my in-laws' house because they got a little bit of water in the downstairs area. I tried to keep it, and my husband immediately smashed it. So he's, you know, he doesn't put up with my critters. So he's not doing great. After the bees and that, you know, he's like, look, no. Now we're going to talk about the most delicious of the arthropods, the crustaceans. And I'm actually not going to get into like super specifics with these guys because like we know, right? Like we know them. So, but there's about over 70,000 species worldwide. And once again, they're the most delicious of all the arthropods. What's up? So you eat bugs. You think you don't, but you do, right? You eat arthropods, right? If you eat seafood. So here's some of our favorites. Some Gulf shrimp, a red swamp crawfish, and a blue crab. Those are my 3 favorites. You know, love those guys. And while we're on the topic of it, let's talk about entomophagy, shall we? Because that is the act of eating arthropods as a source of protein. We do it, whether we think we do or not, we do. I don't know if this is like breaking news for anyone, but sorry, you eat bugs. But it's actually more common in places like Central South America, Asia, Africa. They eat insects. So they're eating big grasshoppers or stick bugs. And they actually gravitated more towards the cricket powder because it was more protein and less of like the junk than like the processed powder. And they said they loved it. You know, it doesn't, your shake tastes like whatever you put in it. The crickets don't really taste like anything. If you go to the Insectarium, there's a section called Bug Appetit, and you can eat some bugs. So try it. It's fun. It's a culinary experience. You can have my favorite bug is chocolate covered weaver ant. Have you ever had Bunch of Crunch? Like Nestle Bunch of Crunch?
Yeah.
It's exactly like that. We had a container of them at the Insectarium, and I was pregnant with my daughter, and I ate the whole thing. And I was like, I don't know if I was supposed to eat all this, but I did, sorry. So we also, at one point, created like a hummus with crickets in it, and that was phenomenal. It was great. I don't remember who came up with that, but I was like, this is great. So that was really, really good. Once again, like crickets, mealworms, waxworms, the things that they cook at the Insectarium, they really don't have a flavor. They eat things like lettuce, you know, I mean, that's, once again, you are what you eat. Like they just don't really, they just kind of taste nutty or like whatever you cook them with. But a great source of protein, very sustainable. So also, we probably know this about arthropods, right? They're great pollinators. We have them to thank for so much of the foods that we eat, fruits and vegetables, right? Plants can't get up and walk over to another plant and go on a date and take each other to dinner and then decide that they maybe want to have a baby plant. Bugs make that possible for a lot of them. So we have them, you know, we need to thank our arthropods for helping our crops grow. And they have friends that help them do it, like bats and hummingbirds and things like that. But these guys take on a lot of the work for us and really help provide us with a lot of the wonderful things that we eat every day. They're also food chain heroes. They're very pivotal for the food chain. You'll hear that a lot. People will be like, why does this critter exist? All it does is aggravate me. But that really is true. A lot of them are super important in the food chain. It starts with a lot of them, right? They're tiny. They're little critters at the bottom of the totem pole. They're going to get eaten by the bigger critters, which are going to get eaten by the bigger critters, which give us even bigger critters, which sometimes are things that we eat. So, you know, they're very important. That's a very important job for them. They're a great protein source for many different animals. And they're tiny garbage men. If it weren't for them, we'd probably be walking around in our own filth everywhere. They break down stuff, you know. So like I said earlier about that millipede, believe it or not, as much as you probably don't like them, cockroaches do it too. They are detritivores and they break down all that yucky. That's why you find them in your trash. That's why you find them where food is. They break all that stuff down. A cockroach will eat anything. I mean, it will. They are going to outlive us all. That's not a joke. But they do a great job of breaking that stuff down, making that nitrogen-rich soil so that new things can grow. You know, they really are, you know, like I said, thanks for cleaning up, arthropods. Y'all are great guys. Nitrogen fixers, helping plants grow. So, just for fun, does anybody out there have like an obscure bug fact that they want to share or no? Or not obscure, fun?
I might need some help with this.
Okay.
So the golden silk orb weaver. Is there something that the silk is like incredibly strong?
I don't know about that spider specifically, and I don't know if anybody has any other entomology experience that knows, but I have heard that about specific arthropods. I do know that waxworms, there's a specific wax or a silkworm, a caterpillar, that makes the silk, that makes the threads that actually are what they make silk out of. So how it works is they make like a webbing, and what they'll do is they'll take that webbing that comes out of the caterpillar and they'll spool it on like a spool, and eventually they make like one thread, and then they take those threads, put those threads together to make silk blankets or shirts or skirts or whatever. Yeah.
High proteins, gold ones, instead of just like one or two certain items. And it just makes it extra sticky.
Yeah. Yeah, because. Yeah, oh, he couldn't hear what you were saying.
Oh, just multiple like proteins, as if some would have like, I don't know, like 5 different silk proteins, they have just a lot more.
So it just makes the webbing stronger, more to be able to stand. Yes.
The two-striped walking stick.
Yes.
Target your eyes, spit in your eyes.
Yes. It sprays a spray, and it's like kind of stinky. Yeah.
So they're the little fat ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So the females are the fatter ones. The males are a little bit skinnier, and sometimes you'll see the male riding like on the female's back. But yes, they will spray you.
The
And-
male will too, or is it just the female? I mean, I don't know.
I can't remember
It's the
now.
big one that I've
I think it's just the female. Yeah. But yeah, they're
They're at my place in Mississippi.
they're here. They're on the North Shore. I had one on a tree in my backyard.
That's a serious case of the sexual dimorphism.
Yes. Yes.
Her
Yeah.
boyfriends are very small.
Yeah.
The golden silk orb weavers, the males are really tiny.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you ever see a golden silk orb weaver in the middle of the web, if you look around like the periphery of the web, you'll see the males. Sometimes more than one, because they'll mate and then the female eats it. But
Yes.
it's comical how small. Like the males are.
It's the same thing with the black widow too. The black widow male is he's relatively small. He's kind of skinny compared. You know, she's got that big old thick abdomen. The males look kind of like sad next to.
It's like a orb and cobweb spider thing. 'Cause then you have like jumping spiders and ground spiders, and they're not as
Yeah, they're not as. They don't have as much. Like it's not as big of a difference visually. You know, when you look at them. So maybe it is more like orb weavers. Yeah, because even like grass spiders, wolf spiders, they don't really, not as much. I mean, I think the females probably are generally still bigger, but just not, it's not as drastic as some of those other ones. Yes.
You didn't talk about ants. Are ants in the same family?
So ants are insects, yeah. So ants, wasps, and bees are all in the same group. And so they all are very similar. I didn't get into them a lot. I'm going to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about ants. It's something I never really delved into. So
Really, really important. And before a couple of years ago, I didn't know about any of them except the fire ant.
yeah,
And, you know, maybe a carpenter ant or a sugar ant. But it's, I started getting concerned that I was killing native ants. And I need to find out more so that I'm not hurting the native ants more than they're already being hurt by the fire ants.
right,
That's
right.
invasive. What's that? Lots of them are invasive here. There are lots of different species of ants that are invasive.
Yeah.
and native.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really critically important is native wasps,
Yes.
and they're solitary, and they get a lot less attention than honeybees.
They do. Yeah, because it's that whole
They pollinate a lot more than bees.
They do pollinate a lot more than bees, and it's that whole thought of I guess they don't give us something that makes them warm, that fills your bucket, that gives you the warm and fuzzies. Like honeybees, oh, it's so cute, it's a honeybee, it makes honey, you know.
Yeah, so European.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Without
But
native wasps,
it's.
you wouldn't have any crops.
But right, exactly. Yeah, they do it, and people always forget about a lot of pollinators. They forget about bats. You know, bats pollinate, and they get forgotten a lot. So.
I read this thing about ants that I thought was bizarre. So typically, chickens can produce eggs, but it would be infertile, not infertile. But ants don't need to mate to produce fertile eggs. They can. I think it's the female, or the eggs will just hatch, be a male offspring, but only when they mate is then when a female is born. Right? And it's a whole thing. It's like I don't
Interesting.
believe it.
Is that a specific
No,
species?
it's a lot of ants,
Or just-
and there's a whole biological name to it, and to me that was bizarre.
I
because
know that
thought-
there are other species of arthropods that, like spiders, for instance, sometimes they can just mate once, and then they can have babies for like the rest of their life. They hold on to it, yeah, and so the eggs don't.
We just learned that.
Yeah, they don't get fertilized until she lays the egg sac. And so every time she makes an egg sac, she can make more babies. She doesn't have to mate again. So arthropods have very interesting reproductive tendencies like that. So I've never heard that, but I don't. It's definitely something that I could see being a real, because like I said, they have very interesting reproductive traits. Like I said, it's all about survival for them. That's what their job is. Like, let's make more arthropods. Let's pollinate this thing. Let's build this colony. Let's tear down this tree. It's very specific. And they're good at their jobs. So,
Also, everyone talks about monarchs going from Canada to Mexico. Do they come back? Or
they do come back, yes. So same thing, it happens on a generational scale. And I used to know there's like 3 or 4 paths. I cannot remember now, but there's specific kind of little paths that they take down, and then they can't remember if they take the exact same ones up or not. But yeah, they go back and forth. Used to be when I drove on the causeway, I would see when they were migrating, you could see them. You would see, and I think you still can, but it's not. I feel like it's not like it used to be. It used to be like you saw like tons of them when you were driving. You would see them flying. Yeah, I know. It's really, it's something we need to try to get their numbers back up. Yes. No, you're good.
Okay. I only know this bug by one name, and it's not the science name.
No, that's fine.
It's the doodle bug.
Oh yeah, like a roly-poly. Yeah, so they're actually a type of little, well, it depends on the species. Some of them are actually more closely related to crustaceans, and some of them are more closely related to millipedes. So the one that you probably see most commonly is the pill millipede, which is it's what you're referring to as like a roly-poly or a doodlebug, or yeah, they're great. Got great detritivores. They're tiny trash men. They're cleaning up all that stuff for us. They're breaking down all kinds of decaying matter and things like that. So they're really great ones to keep around. And a lot of times the first bug a lot of us have an interaction with, our first arthropod. Yeah, kids picking them up and playing with them because they're totally harmless. They roll up in that little ball, which is just so cute and endearing. That's the thing with bugs, like I said in the beginning of this talk, or with arthropods, is they're misunderstood. A lot of people just see scary things like with wasps, like stingers and, red, and they bite and this and that. And I actually was talking earlier about how as humans, we tend to gravitate towards animals that look like us, that have big forward-facing eyes and, human-like features. We love animals that we can kind of connect with. And that's really hard to do with an animal that has 8 legs and 8 eyes and a stinger on a tail. So.
If you've ever seen any macro photography,
Yes.
you will see how amazing they are.
Well, and that's why a lot of people are okay with jumping spiders. Because jumping spiders, big forward-facing eyes, they kind of look endearing, like sweet little puppies, but of the spider world. So, that's something that, we have to keep in mind. But I think when we remind people about all the important things that they do and all the ways that they benefit us, it can help people be like, okay, maybe I won't step on this critter next time I see it. Maybe if I see a spider in my house, I'll scoop it up and put it outside. Because they're important and they deserve a chance to do what they got to do too,
Speaking of jumping spiders, we have a fan here.
Yes.
Where can we find them?
Oh, you can find them all over. Yeah, I find them on my porch most commonly. But there's a lot of different species. Some of them like to be on trees. Some of them like to be on plants. There's a little green jumping spider called the magnolia jumping spider, and it's green. It's like a bright green color, and you can find it a lot of times on plants. I like the one, it's the genus is Paraphytopus, and it's like a big black one. It's like real fuzzy, kind of looks like a little teddy bear. It's so cute. So I like that one. But yeah, you can find jumping spiders all over the place.
How will we know if it's a jumping spider versus a spider?
They have a very distinct like way that they move. They kind of skitter, like I don't know how to explain it, like kind of twitch almost, like joop joop joop. Like it's not as smooth, and they will literally jump. They have big forward-facing eyes too, on the front of their head. So they typically, the one you're going to see a lot around here is a little jumping spider that's kind of gray and black and white, has little stripes on it, and I mean, I'm talking little bitty. So you should be able to point it out. I can show you a picture of it when I get a chance. So.
What are the little black spiders that look like little eyes? I don't know if it's their eyes, but they're moving their eyes all the time.
So the little, like the little fuzzy.
Something in the front of it, and I don't think it's their eyes, but it's kind of crazy. Is that just me?
Is it? That might just be a little jumping spider, yeah.
They're just always moving their little.
Oh, yeah, those are their little pedipalps. That's like an extra little set of hands they have that they can use for like mating purposes to hold on to each other. So yeah, they move them around. I know what you're talking about. They do. They move them kind of in like a little circle. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably jumping spiders. Yes.
Specimen.
Oh, let me see.
I have a house in Pascagoula, and this was in my kitchen, but he was dead.
It's dark in here. It looks like some type of wolf spider.
I took a picture and
I get the lights
identified
on.
him as
Okay.
some type of tarantula.
Oh no, I don't think it's a tarantula.
You only see tarantulas in far western Louisiana.
Yeah, the south.
Goodness.
This looks like a Carolina wolf spider to me.
I had a dead one.
Yeah.
It was a rabbit wolf.
Let me see if I can pull it up on my. So I did include this in here. This was just my conclusion. I kind of went over this, but arthropods are great, wonderful, great, awesome, sweet. Next time you see a bug, remember how important and fascinating they are. And then I wanted to show y'all this. I get all my bug facts from bugguide.net. It is a very reliable website. We used it all the time at the Insectarium. That's how I learned about it. And then I also I didn't include it in here, but maybe I can pull it up on the computer or something. There's a field guide that's really, really great. It's the North American Field Guide of Insects and Spiders by Arthur Evans, ? So if you're looking for a field guide that you want to bring with you on like a nature walk, that's a really great one to get. It's waterproof, so if it rains while you're on a walk or something, it'll be okay. But it's got like everything divided into all the different groups, all the different classes, families, all that. But it also has like a little quick reference guide too inside of there.
Guide to insects and bugs, North American.
Yeah, this one with the mantis on it. This one right here. That's like my favorite one. And I think it's typically pretty inexpensive. I mean, obviously there's tons of field guides out there. This is just the one that I've really enjoyed. I have it. I've used it over the years. It's got a lot of what we have here in the Southeast Louisiana, so I don't think that there's anything I've come across that I haven't been able to find in there. But I really like bugguide.net. I'm going to see if I can pull up a...
You can submit your own specimens, I think, to that site too.
You can, yes.
People identify them for you.
You probably know a lot about beetles, but I read 1 in every 4 animals in the world is beetles. Beetles are
I mean, arthropods outnumber us just so significantly. I mean, we don't even compare. You know, there's just so many of them compared to us and compared to any other animal. You know, they're just abundant, but they're so
Although
important.
they are also declining, just like birds.
Yes. Like I said, a lot of that has to do with deforestation. They just don't have anywhere to go. You know, there's no trees, there's no grass.